Hi, I'm Valerie Espinosa, and I am the chair of the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. And we are going to interview our friend today, Jeff Varela. He's running for the State House of Representatives in District
48.
So thank you for watching our program today, and we're going to learn all about Mr. Varela, who is the son of Lucky Varela, representative and former chairman of finance, correct?
That's correct.
So welcome. It's good to have you here. Thank you for reaching out to be on our program. I get a lot of good feedback about this program. We've been doing it for many years. I can't even remember how long because they'll correct me if I am specific, but I think it's very educational. It's informative. It tells the people who you are and why you're running and what you're doing. So with that, I'd like to hear all about you. And I know you do the Round the Roundhouse, right?
Well, up until the beginning of this year, I used to write a column in Round the Roundhouse, which is the state employees newspaper locally. And I used to write about issues facing public employees, as you and I have been public employees.
I miss it then. It's not in there.
It's not in there anymore.
But you did that for many years, and you were very articulate and very specific, and you stood up for the state employees at all times.
Yes, absolutely, because I'm a product of state government. And so I believe in state government, and there are, even though a lot of our public employees sometimes get blemished in the media, there are hundreds and thousands of good public employees out there, not only at the state level, but I see it in county government, I see it in city government. So my interest in writing the article was to keep it as non-political as possible, Valerie, but to talk more about the working in the trenches is what I used to call the article. Working in the trenches with public employees.
I hope you pick that up again sometime.
I hope so too. Maybe Round the Roundhouse will call me back, and maybe I can continue my articles after the campaign.
That's right. So let's talk about this campaign that you're running in. We obviously know your father for all his good accomplishments, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if you know this, but your father, I was working in the Secretary of State's office many moons ago, and I won't say again how many, but years ago. And he was at DFA then, so we'd run into each other in the hallways, and we'd always speak, and he was always very cordial. And then, I went off to work at Los Alamos. He was a legislator, and so anytime I've ever needed his assistance, I can't imagine how many people go to him, but he's always also helped me specifically, not only with, trying to obtain natural gas lines into northern New Mexico and the surrounding areas of my district here in Santa Fe. I know La Cienega and some of the areas outside of the city proper don't have natural gas. So I know you've attended a couple of our meetings. The media was there. The Rio Grande Sun had a very positive article, and you contributed to that. We've also, and I do want to hear your stance on these natural gas lines and what you would do to continue to work with me on that. Sure. And then our wildfire task force. So I'll start with my own questions.
Well, in regards to natural gas, I mean, obviously, New Mexico has a plentiful supply of natural gas. Unfortunately, many of our rural areas, as you know, Valerie, that in New Mexico don't have access to natural gas. So the idea of extending natural gas lines to different parts of northern New Mexico, different rural parts of northern New Mexico, I think is a great idea. And you look at it two ways. You look at it, obviously, for the convenience of the public, to get them access to natural gas, because propane is very, very expensive. And I know this by experience because my family, some of my family members live out in Pecos, and they're dependent on propane gas, and it's very expensive. And the market for propane it's unpredictable. So just depending on what the market calls for in oil and natural gas, and in this case propane, you kind of do a roller coaster with the price for propane.
You're exactly right with the predictability of it, because it also fluctuates.
It fluctuates a lot, and sometimes it's extremely fluctuating to the point where people can't afford it. So, by providing an opportunity for the state to, and I call it an investment, everybody looks at it as a cost, and of course the propane producers are going to be against this idea, because then it cuts into their market. But we've got to bring attention to this whole issue on energy and natural gas and propane gas. So I think by having an opportunity to extend natural gas lines to rural areas in New Mexico, I think is a win-win situation both for the consumer, for the public that live in rural areas, and for economic development here in New Mexico.
I couldn't agree with you more. And in reality, it's not putting them out of business. It is, just opening things up for an opportunity, and we need it. I mean, we're desperate for natural gas.
I'm glad you brought that up, Valerie, because I know some people that work in the propane industry, and obviously they're concerned. I think a bill, there was some legislation introduced.
Larry tried to push it through, and we were all very convincing. But I think the propane lobby, got to them and said, hey, that's going to put us out of business, and that was not the intention. In fact, I ran into one of the gentlemen with the propane company. He said, "Oh, I know who you are," and I said, we're not trying to put you out of business. And he didn't understand how that bill worked. It was just going to work through the gas company to require them to install the gas lines and the infrastructure, and then you tap into it from that point.
Right.
So
it gives consumers a choice.
Right.
If the consumer chooses to hook on to natural gas, and they have that option, or if they're content with staying with propane, and some people are. So I agree with you. I think we need to work with the propane folks, maybe educate them a little bit more about what the legislation contains. But I have to consider that, because again, I know people that work in the business, and you do too. So we have to take maybe a balanced approach towards this, to where they're not affected severely enough that they puts them out of business.
And competition's good, right? That's the word I was looking for.
Well,
competition.
They say that competition's good in just about every aspect of business, medical care, and all that. So I think we need to probably have some more dialogue on this issue with. Obviously, with the gas company in New Mexico, and with the propane industry.
And I've always seen you, alongside your dad, and I really respect that, because he's contributed so much, and you have shown a willingness to help him out when he had, when he had a little tough time there for a while. You picked up the pieces for him, and you you attended a lot of the meetings.
I was a substitute quarterback. Yeah.
He's my co-chair on my wildfire task force.
Yes.
And he stood up. I mean, every time there's been an issue in my district, which is his district, he's always stepped up to help me. So I'm really honored to have him as my vice chair of the Wildfire Task Force.
Yes.
So, people would ask, well, we had two fires going on at the same time, one in the Pecos Wilderness and one in the Jemez Mountains.
Right.
And I'm talking about the one in the Jemez side of it. Anyhow, those two fires were in my district. So, we were all trying to contribute to, prevention, and you were there also. So I want to thank you and get your thoughts on that.
Well, New Mexico being, New Mexico, the desert climate and the drought situation that we've had for years now, it's an important issue, obviously, and it hits us here in Santa Fe, and of course in the Pecos Wilderness, which is right behind the ski basin here. I remember the fire. I remember going up to the fire line as far as we could get up the road from Pecos. By the church out there at Macho. And just seeing the destruction and the devastation that the wildfire brought there, and the way the fire moved across the mountain there from west to east. Yeah, it was very quick and destructive. So we really got to be more proactive, I think, when we
and bring some awareness
to to this issue, because some of those probably could have been prevented. I understand, some of those fires that we've had over the last couple of years could have been prevented. So I applaud the effort your effort in bringing this task force together and having them meet regularly to see where we're at. It's better to be proactive, obviously, Valerie, in these kind of situations than reactive. So.
And have funding ready and available.
Yes.
And listen to the needs of your constituents. So, I know I've taken a lot of your time just asking you questions about my self-interest because of how lucky I was to have Representative Varela by my side to help me, with our budget issues. And so, he's a mentor, I'm sure, to you.
Absolutely.
And so with that, we talk about a lot of issues that you're very familiar with. What would you bring to the table as a state rep?
Well, continuing where my father left off, I hear a lot from people in the district about, your father has a lot of integrity. He cares about public service. He cares about public employees. He cares about the seniors, and he cares about veterans. Those are issues that are really close to me. And watching my father dialogue with different constituency throughout the years.
How many years has he been there?
Well, it'll be 30 years at the end of this year.
Wow.
So it's part of his life. It's always been part of his life. And then before that, 25 years in state government. So that's 55 years when it's all said and done for my father. And, you don't replace that knowledge. I or my opponents won't replace Representative Varela.
Not ever.
We can try. But I think
he's got that finance background too.
That finance background, the budget process background. Just he remembers issues from 20 years ago, numbers from 20 years ago, and to replace that, you can't replace that. But I think in my candidacy, and if I get elected, I can hit the ground running and continue the representation that he provided District 48 throughout those years.
So let's talk about you. And you graduated in 1979 from Santa Fe High.
Yes.
And tell me about yourself, your family. Yeah, you've been here for a while.
Yeah. Well, born and raised here in Santa Fe, District 48, a product of the public schools. I did go to parochial schools for about the first 5 years of my...
And you got tired of getting swatted by the ruler and the yardstick?
And it was very expensive, too. So went to La Goita and went to B.F. Young Junior High and Santa Fe Mid High School, and then graduated from Santa Fe High. And then before that, in 1978, I had already enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. So when I graduated the following year, I took off to basic training out at San Diego.
Outstanding. And
I spent 3.5 years in the Marine Corps. 2 of those years were out at Camp Pendleton in California, and the other 2 years were overseas in Okinawa. So that was an experience. And talk about discipline. That's where I've obtained my discipline.
What'd you learn there?
Well, commitment to country. And think about it from this perspective. Since the 9/11, Valerie, from my perspective, a lot of this country has lost its patriotism. So when I think about my days in the military and the Marine Corps, and I think about all those lives and those people that we lost as a result of 9/11, that patriotism it burns in me. And so that's one of the reasons why I've decided to, kind of put my other career pursuits on hold and run for office, because I believe in public service. That's what our family's about. That's what my father's about, and that's what our family's about. So the Marine Corps taught me a lot about commitment to country.
I don't know if you knew this, but when you say your family's been about public service, my grandfather was a state senator, state representative, and the chair of the old highway department.
The old highway department. I
so
heard
it does,
that, yes.
it runs in the blood, and you want to serve. You observe them, you watch them in action, and you don't want to lose that, contact and dedication and loyalty to the public.
So you have an understanding of the commitment to public service, and and I'll be honest. When I worked in state government was good to me. At the same time that I climbed the ladder, my career ladder, I started off as a maintenance worker, temporary maintenance worker at the Supreme Court building downtown, and just to get my foot in the door. And I was going to school at Santa Fe Community College,